Hey y'all, today we're going to be talking about camellias and how to care for them, how to prune them, and what kind of sun and shade conditions they need. But first we have to go find some shade. We can't be in the sunniest part of the garden, so come along with me while we find an ideal location for them. Okay, so here we are in a shadier part of the garden. This area is shaded by the house and also by some trees. If you can see right up there, we've got a lot of great shelter from wind and from cold weather and everything, just from the fence, the house, and the trees. So camellias are a beautiful plant to have in your garden. They are evergreen, so they keep their leaves all year. They have large blooms to them, which are going to be about that large. I actually have one right here that's just started blooming that I'm about to plant. So this is the April Tryst collection. Look at that bloom. Is that not so pretty? So I love the gorgeous blooms that these plants have. This variety normally starts blooming like its name says. It normally starts blooming around the end of March to April. But that one just decided to bloom a little early, which was really cool to share with you guys. So camellias are considered marginally hardy in our area, which means that we are in zone 6B to 7A, just depending on your exact location and who you talk to. So right there in that zone. And camellias love zone 6 to 9. So when you are looking for camellias, you need to make sure that you're looking for the variety called Camellia japonica. That japonica right there is going to tell you that they are camellias that are adaptable to our climate. So camellias love the hot weather. They love Florida and Mississippi, Alabama, places like that. You've probably seen them in bloom if you're there ever in the winter to early springtime, middle of spring. You've probably seen gorgeous flowers blooming down there and wondered, what is that? It's a camellia probably, if it looked like that. But there are several varieties that do bloom really well here for us, but you have to take a little bit of precautions with them. So what you have to do to take care of your camellia here in our Middle Tennessee area is you need to protect it first in a protected area. So right here in this little shade garden that we've built, we've got a fence right over here, and we also have this fence right behind me, and our our wind comes from that way. So the camellias are going to be blocked by the fence and the house and the trees from any extra wind. So they're not going to be getting wind hitting up against them, which is really good. You don't want wind hitting against your camellia. So you want to make sure that you plant your camellias in a shady spot. You also need to take some precautions in wintertime. So because they're marginally hardy here, when we have ice and snow, which we sometimes get of course, then you want to make sure that you're going to be covering those camellias outside. So you might want to plant them in an area, if you have an area closer to your house where you don't have to run way out into the yard in the middle of winter time when it's freezing to cover up your camellias. You might want to keep them a little closer to the house, and that way you can also enjoy them from indoors. You can look out your window and see them blooming also. So the way that you cover your camellias, you want to do that with a frost cloth. Frost cloths are available at our nursery. They're available other places, hardware stores and things. But if you don't want to purchase a frost cloth to keep on hand, you can also use an old quilt or an old blanket. Just make sure that it's not going to be too heavy so that it doesn't weigh the plants down a lot. You don't want it to do that. So what kind of landscape do camellias look good in? So camellias would be great as a hedge. They make a great mass planting if you want to do that, because they're evergreens. They're going to provide that screen for you year round. But again, you have to have them protected from wind, so don't just have them out in the middle of your yard as a screen or anything. They look great in a woodland garden, which is kind of what I'm doing here. I'm going to plant these guys. I've got a Japanese maple that's growing right over here, and then I've got these trees right behind me that provides a lot of nice canopy over here, and one of them is a dogwood, which blooms, in the springtime and is lovely. You can also have them be a single specimen plant where they're just the focal point of your garden. So I lived in North Carolina several years ago, and camellias grow quite well towards the coast in North Carolina where we were. And I had a camellia that was beautiful there, and we had several, but one of them in particular was right where our deck meets our house, and it was gorgeous. It was probably 6 feet tall by 6 feet wide, and in the springtime it would have pink blooms everywhere, all over the plant that were that large. It was just a beautiful plant. So they make a great specimen if you just want a focal point in an area that's shady. So what kind of soil do camellias need? Camellias need organically rich, moist, well-draining, acidic soil. Did you catch all that? Yeah, they like a little bit, they're a little pickier about their soil conditions than some other plants are. So what I suggest, we have a ton of clay in Middle Tennessee. I have it in my yard, you probably have it in your yard. And so what you need to do when you're digging your hole to plant your camellia, you need to make sure that you break up the clay at the bottom of that soil. You can do that with a shovel, you can do it with your hands, but break it up into small little pieces. And then you want to add some soil conditioner to it. So we sell soil conditioner here at the nursery. You can also find it at probably your hardware store kind of place, garden center near you has it. But you want to add some soil conditioner to that, and you can ask us below or ask us in the nursery exactly how much you need to add depending on what you're planting. You're going to mix your soil conditioner in with your clay, and what that's going to do is provide really good drainage for your plant. Then if you want to also amend your soil further, then we would recommend using earthworm castings. That would be great for these plants. Earthworm castings is like the mother food for plants. It's awesome. You can take some of the clay and take some of the dirt from the pot that you're going to be planting, and also just add some earthworm castings. Use a wheelbarrow if you want, and just mix all that together. Again, break up the clay really good with your hands or a shovel, and then you can use that to amend your soil when you're planting your camellia. As far as pruning goes for camellias, you really don't need to prune a whole lot with these plants. If you find that yours does need a little bit of pruning, then just prune a little bit, just prune it lightly after it is finished blooming in spring. You never want to prune a camellia later on in summer or fall in winter, because you're actually going to be cutting off blooms. So you may not actually see the bloom bud forming yet, but if you trim it at those times of the year, you're going to be limiting your blooms for the next spring. So always prune this plant lightly after it blooms in spring if you think it needs it. Let's just look at this guy again. Isn't he so pretty? I love planting camellias in springtime. I prefer planting them in springtime. The reason for that is because then because they're marginally hardy here, they don't like the cold weather quite as much as other plants do. You're going to give them plenty of time in spring when it's warm, summer when it's hot, and fall when it's just barely starting to cool down, for them to get acclimated to your soil and to their environment before we have cold winter ice or snow come, or just cold winter weather in general. I prefer planting them in spring versus fall for that reason.